Have you heard the term boundaries before? I had never heard it before I became a stepmom, but over the years I've realized how important they are to my health and to my family, and that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, step family life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this. Hello, and welcome. Today, we are talking about boundaries. Stepmom boundaries, that is. We're going to talk about why they're important, and I'm going to send you a really simple exercise that you can do to set up some healthy boundaries for yourself. Now, I don't know if you had thought much about boundaries before you became a stepmom. I know I hadn't. So let's talk a little bit about what they look like. Have you ever had a time when you have said yes to something that you really wanted to say no to? Do you consider yourself a people pleaser sometimes? Or even if not, maybe you just don't want to rock the boat. Maybe you're not sure if it's your place to put your foot down and, take a stand, even nicely, right? I'll give you an example from my experience. When I became a stepmom, I thought that there were a lot of things expected of me, things that actually should have been up for discussion, things that I had a choice in that I didn't realize I had a choice in, right? Like attending kid stuff, like attending the drop-offs and pickups, or going to sporting events, or taking part in co-parenting counseling with my husband. So, I was all in at the beginning, and that's sort of my personality. So I'm a type A. I go all in on everything I do. And honestly, it's a skill, but it's also my downfall because I end up stressing myself out because I get involved too much. I've always been that way, like when I've been volunteering in different organizations, throughout high school, college, my professional life, I almost always end up in charge of whatever I'm volunteering for. I see things that need to get done and I do them. So, the same was true when I became a stepmom. I approached it in my typical type A fashion, and I opted into all the things. If I was going to be a stepmom, I was going to be all in. I was going to attend everything. I was going to take part in everything, and I was happy to do it. Well, the first year of marriage and my first year of stepmotherhood was really hard. And I think it is for a lot of stepmoms. I had never been married before. My husband had been divorced with 4 kids that he had half the time. And we met and fell in love really quick. And we knew really quick that this was it. And we got engaged pretty quick. So it was a big transition for all of us, kind of all at once, right? And at first, I got along pretty well with his ex-wife. We have a lot in common. She's, fun. But they have had a high conflict relationship since, really long before they actually split up. But since they split, it's been very high conflict. And so it wasn't too long before my relationship with her also became high conflict. And I realized I really dreaded going to the kid exchanges. I'm always really excited to see the kids. I love them. But it was really hard for me to deal with my anxiety over what might happen at those exchanges. Would there be a shouting match, some kind of dig or some kind of joke that was maybe a little nasty underneath? Would there be the silent treatment? It caused me a lot of anxiety. And to be clear, this is not about her just her being nasty. My husband and his ex, they truly push each other's buttons. And it's not necessarily her that I dreaded. It was the conflict. And I hated that it happened, sometimes in front of the kids. And it would end up sticking with me and gnawing on me like the rest of the evening. And I didn't really realize how much it bothered me. I mean, it took me a lot of drop offs, going to a lot of drop offs before I realized how much it bothered me and how much it kind of stuck with me and increased, my anxiety levels. But I thought a lot about it. I had a lot of conversations with my therapist, and I had a lot of conversations with Craig, and kind of realized that the best thing for me to do for my health and for, my peace was to maybe go to less of those exchanges. And I knew it was going to be a tough ask, right? Because Craig and I both view our marriage and our co-parenting in our household as a true partnership. And we count on each other. And I felt a little bit like I was letting him down, right? I put a lot of pressure on myself to be a full partner and to do all the things. And I felt like if I wasn't going to these exchanges, that I wasn't fully being there for him. I felt like I was almost abandoning him. But at the end of the day, I realized that I really needed to advocate for myself. I really needed to have the conversation with him. And so I did. And of course, he understood. I mean, he is a wonderful partner, and my mental health is just as important to him as it is to me. And at the end of the day, when I started going to fewer of the exchanges, the decrease that I had in anxiety, it made me so much happier. And I was in better spirits when he got home with the kids. I was able to be fully present when they got home, and have conversations with them and really sort of, start the visit with them on a positive foot. So we kind of ultimately agreed that, I would come to some of the exchanges, but just maybe not all. And so that's what we've done. Is it perfect? No. I mean, there's always going to be something, right? It's a blended family after all. But it allows me to have a little bit of breathing room, and it allows me to be my very best self with Craig, for Craig, and with and for the kids, right? So let's talk about boundaries and what they might mean for you, because it can be really hard to figure out first that you need boundaries, but then to figure out, what they might look like. And the scary part is implementing them, right? So setting your boundaries means really establishing a baseline for what you can and can't accept as being healthy for your well-being. It is figuring out, where you need to implement some, for lack of a better word, rules, and how that'll be helpful for you. Easy enough, right? Not so much. It can be a lot harder than it sounds, right? The first thing you need to do is figure out what it is you need a boundary for. And it may not be that you sit down and say, well, I need a boundary. Let's figure out what it's for. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you have something that's impacting you, if you're, realizing that you're not functioning at your best, it's sort of doing some self-reflection and really thinking about what it is that's impacting you and how it's impacting you, right? So for me, in my situation, I just knew that going to these exchanges made me, a little nuts. It made me less happy. It affected my evening and the way I interacted with the kids and with my husband. And so, that was sort of the catalyst for thinking about how to change that and how to change my mindset. So, in my situation, it really meant that I needed to take a little bit of a step back from being so all in all of the time. I needed to make a little bit of time for me and get a little bit more headspace, if that makes sense. So if there's something that is impacting you, I would encourage you to really think about it and really take the time to kind of reflect on, what that is, what that looks like, and how it's impacting you, right? And once you do that, once you know what it is you need to address, then, and that's the hard part, right? Once you know what you need to address, then you can figure out how to deal with it. So in my case, I knew that I was getting super anxious around these exchanges. I knew that it was impacting, my interactions and all that kind of stuff. So once I knew that, then for me, it was kind of taking a step back and figuring out, what am I going to do to take care of myself in this situation? What am I going to do to allow myself to breathe so that I can be my best. And for me, it was taking that step back and just a little bit of a step back, right? Like I still go to some exchanges, I just don't go to all of them. I kind of gauge where I am on that day and that situation and what's going on. And, I talked to Craig about it. So that was my boundary in that situation. Yours may look totally different, right? They're different for everyone. Every step family is totally unique. Every step family has its own challenges. And so yours is going to look different. So, I mean, let's say your situation revolves around feeling really overwhelmed, right? That's super common for stepmoms. And I have been there too. You feel like there is so much swirling around you with blended family life and that you can't get a handle on any of it. You're frazzled. You feel like you're running in a million different directions at the same time. You're not taking care of yourself. And maybe you feel like you're failing at a little bit of all of it. You know what I mean? So, what's the best way to address that? I mean, it may even be that you're sitting down, you're like, I don't know what's wrong. I just feel like I'm all over the place? Well, maybe the best way to address that is to set a boundary around something as simple as just being able to take care of yourself. Maybe it is blocking out some time every week that's just for you. Some time that you can take that swirling that's going on in your mind and try to quiet it a little bit. Some time that you can unwind. Maybe, do some self-care. And I know that's kind of a buzzword these days, but it really does make a difference, right? And whatever that looks like for you. And if you haven't thought about self-care, I would encourage you, go back and listen to episode 4. It is at thiscustomlife.com/episode 4, and I'll put a link in the show notes. I'll also link to episode 10, which I did with Margaret Stein on mindfulness. And it's a really great one that helps with meditation and, really getting your mind to sort of quiet down so you can focus on yourself. So anyway, that's just another example. Hey stepmom, do you wish you could unlock the secret to handling all that blended family life throws at you? Let's be real, every family's different and has its own struggles. But if you give me 6 weeks, I will give you the tools you need to love your stepmom life. In just 6 weeks, I will help you learn to deal with your partner's ex with confidence, to understand your role as a stepmom, to learn what it is your stepchildren are really looking for and how to communicate with them, to know that you and your partner are on the same page, and to reduce your daily stress and reclaim time for yourself. The Blended Family Formula is a one-of-a-kind course just for stepmoms, designed to help you learn the skills and the strategies to confidently tackle all of your stepmom challenges. You deserve to live out your purpose as a stepmom, and the people who depend on you deserve to get you at your best. If you are a stepmom wondering how to overcome the overwhelm as you feel like you're failing just a little bit at everything, or if you feel guilty for wanting more, this is an opportunity that I promise you will not want to miss. Head over to thiscustomlife.com/BFF to get on the waitlist now. Once you've figured out that you may need a boundary and you think you might have a good way to address it, what comes next? Well, you need to think about who that might impact, right? When you're setting up boundaries, it can obviously have an impact on other people in your family, potentially the ex, whatever. So in my case, the impact was going to be on my husband, but potentially also my stepkids. Like if I'm not there, for pickup, I do have a good relationship with them most of the time. And, are they going to wonder where I am? Are they going to think that I'm not interested in being there? And so I needed to have a conversation with my husband, Craig, about how I was feeling, not necessarily to ask permission to implement the boundary, but so that he understood where I was coming from and we could kind of tackle it together, right? Like you guys are a team. So if you need a boundary, that's totally fine. You don't need permission, but you do need to work together. So it's important to get your partner's buy-in. It's important to get their support, right? So that they understand where you're coming from and so that they can help you enforce the boundary, right? And when you talk to your partner, of course, it doesn't need to be confrontational. It doesn't need to be, hey, look, I need this or else, I need to not go to these exchanges or else I don't know what's going to happen. It doesn't need to be that. It's just a conversation, right? It's just having a conversation about how you're feeling. Hey, look, I am feeling anxious when we go to these things. I feel like it's impacting the way that I interact with you and the kids. And I've been thinking about it, and this is sort of how I feel. Um, it would help me to deal with this. These are the things I feel like I probably need because I want to be the best version of me and I want to be able to show up and be there for you guys. And setting up this kind of structure will help me do that. And have the conversation with them. They may not understand at first, right? I mean, that's sort of the nature. They may be defensive. They may wonder if they're doing something to cause you to feel this way. And it's having that conversation and saying, no, it's not about you. It is sort of this, blended life we live. And I just need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, right? I hope that makes sense. I think, your relationship is the core of your family. It is the most important part of your family. And so being able to communicate with your spouse openly and honestly and making sure they know your true feelings and talking with them in good faith is really one of the most important parts of your step family. So I want you, more than anything else that we talk about today, that if you take away from this conversation, I want you to talk to your partner about your needs. Get their buy-in and ask them to help you enforce your boundaries. Ask them to help you take care of yourself. They don't want you to neglect yourself. They don't want you to be unhappy, right? One of the other things that I've had to do over the years is to take better care of myself. I know one thing about myself, and I know that I throw myself into things and I run myself ragged. And I've done it with work. I've done it with almost every aspect of my life at some point or another. And I remember a number of years when I was first in the working world, I would run myself ragged and then I would go home for the holidays and I would collapse. And I can't tell you how many Christmases I have spent sick on my mom's couch because I had run myself ragged before I came home for the holidays. I mean, that's hot mess territory right there. That's not good for anybody, especially when you're in a family that you're trying to be there for, right? So, of course, patterns repeat themselves. In my first couple years as a stepmom, I totally ran myself ragged. I was focusing so much on making sure that everyone else was taken care of, making sure that, Craig was taken care of and the stepkids, and making sure that, I was out there trying to be the perfect stepmom and really do everything I could, and I was putting myself last. And I felt like if I focused on myself, that I was being selfish. Craig really helped me change that. I had a conversation with him about how I was feeling and the level of overwhelm. And, he acknowledged and realized and said, look, I know how much you do for the family and you absolutely need to take care of yourself. And he checks in with me regularly. In fact, he said to me the other day, what can I do to support you? What can I do to help you? You're doing all this stuff. I mean, that's a wonderful relationship point to get to where you're asking each other how you can help support each other, right? It's sort of a check-in, just seeing how you're each doing. So if you can have those open conversations about how you're feeling, it'll help you both interact with each other in a much more constructive way, right? And, every once in a while, speaking of constructive, he gives me constructive feedback that I don't necessarily want, right? Every once in a while, he reminds me to get my head out from behind the screen. I tend to work around the clock, and sometimes he fusses at me to put the screen down, put the computer down, put the phone down, and be present. It is not my finest quality, I know this, but I'm really glad that I asked for his help a few years ago because he's giving it to me, even when it annoys me that he calls me out, right? So I mentioned earlier that I've got a great boundaries exercise. Here's the deal. I have included it as part of a free masterclass called The 3 Stepmom Lies That Are Keeping You from the Blended Family Life You Love. Y'all, this masterclass is awesome. I will walk you through the 3 things that you can do right now to improve your stepmom life. These are the 3 little things that voice in your head tells yourself that you don't even realize are lies, and how you can make a few little adjustments that will make a difference in your daily life. And as part of the masterclass, I'm going to walk you through a really quick exercise on boundaries. It only takes a few minutes, but it's going to help you identify where you may need a boundary, and it's going to talk you through how to set it up. Did I mention it was free? It's pretty great. So just go to thiscustomlife.com/masterclass and you can sign up for it. If you go to the show notes, I'll link to it there as well. And again, this masterclass is going to have some really awesome information for you. I think it's really going to make a big difference. It's an hour of your time, and it's going to give you some steps you can take immediately to help with your blended family life. And it's the first of a lot of really great things that I have coming down the pike for you that are free. So stay tuned. I appreciate you spending time with me today, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.